Welcome to the Barbell Nerds podcast. Today, Will and I welcome Sean Doherty, Assistant Strength and Conditioning Coach or Assistant Sports Performance Coach for Villanova University. Sean, welcome to the Barbell Nerds podcast.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Will. Glad to be on here.
First of all, great name. Awesome. Got to say it. Sean, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to Villanova, a little bit of your background, passions, everything along those lines.
Good. Kind of go through this pretty fast.
Report.
Knew I wanted to be a strength coach very quick in my career because I started training at Franco's gym. I was in high school and kind of just fell in love with that atmosphere, the passion. Actually ended up walking on at Montana. So for football, played for a season and a half and then decided to actually switch over and help in the weight room, Olympic sports and football. So I was kind of where I kind of got my feet wet with being with a large team. Because I've trained a lot of like people on the side, personal training, things like that, but just understanding the team aspect of it was something new to me. Interned there for 2 years. I was at Mount St. Mary's with women's basketball in Emmitsburg, Maryland. Ended up finishing out my degree and then taking an internship with the Sevens rugby, the USA men's Sevens rugby before the Rio Olympics, which is an awesome experience. Just kind of understanding all of the factors that go into just one sport. You mean actually having that forward coactive model and understanding all the things that go into just what working with one sport is. So that was my first exposure to that. Went back to Montana as a GA, worked football, men, women's tennis, and track. Ended up getting married out in Montana and then moved back to East Coast where I'm from. So I'm from this Pennsylvania area near Philly. Then actually took a part-time role at Loyola. So I was commuting to Loyola and living in Pennsylvania at the time.
Oh,
and then
that's brutal.
Got a phone call from Loyola got a phone call from Villanova about 4 or 5 weeks into that part-time gig with Loyola and been here starting. Actually, I think I was hired in October 2018. So it's been like 2 years.
Very cool, dude. Very cool. So we were talking a little bit beforehand and everything. You guys everyone just got done with their quarantine, their COVID kind of training sessions where there was a lot of obviously sprinting, a lot of no weight room sessions. You said you have some pretty cool data on some of that stuff. Care to share a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. And we came back to returning to training in August. So beginning of August, I think it's like August 17th, everyone returned to campus. Basically the down week for the fall sports, and then the second week of the semester, this fall sports kind of intro. Spring sports were the third week of the semester they could actually start training. But everything just was very general, right? Like our speed sessions was warmed up, and then like we're doing like 10-yard bursts into like tempo runs, and things were very like extensive, very general at first, really breaking stuff down, and then as we go on, we just kind of keep on progressing. It's like as you progress per week with our normal style of training, when we got to train multiple times a week, we're just only having to see them like once or twice a week with these field sessions, with these weight room sessions. So it depends on what the sports are actually able to do training-wise. When I started with lacrosse, we had 2 days. We did that for 4 weeks. One was a field session, one was a weight room, total body session. After 4 weeks, we added like a track session before. So one group would practice. I would warm the other group up on the tracks, and that was like how they stole an extra session. So they did 3. So a field session, a track, speed session, then one weight room. And then we just started this week. We have 2 lifts. We have like tents in the corner of our field. So we have like some trap bars, kettlebells, things like that out there. So we're stealing basically an extra lift for these last 4 weeks. So we went like 4 weeks with 2 sessions, 4 weeks with 3 sessions, 4 weeks with 4 now. So that's our plan. With the data, so we did no resistance sprinting. We did a lot of hard starts, and then we kind of I implemented some soft starts like week 1, like 5-yard build, 10-yard roll. And then we just kind of build up the volume each week. And we got to doing a 20-yard build, 15-yard fly. And I mean, last week was week 9 of training, so I decided, or week 8 of training with them. So I decided to break the timers out and hit some flying 10s. So I do a 15. So what I've been doing, I did it last year too. I do a 15-yard build and then a 10-yard fly. I just think it's a short enough of a distance where they won't tweak a hamstring. But it's not, I mean, it's like, I think it's a good happy medium because I did it in the fall and the weather was kind of good, and I got lucky last week too with the weather being nice. So that's kind of another reason why I did it. But it seems to give a good kind of standard of like, all right, I'm going to do this with all my teams, 15-yard build, 10-yard fly. That way I just know like who's fast, who's not, things like that. The data, so I got it in front of me here. So we had everyone hit above 95% of what they hit last year. And then we had 12 new freshmen, so they didn't have, but we had 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 people hit faster. 12 out of 32 people hit faster times this year from last fall. And like, I don't know why. You mean like there's less training for sure, but there's also less practice, stress, things like that. I mean, there's a lot of, I think you gotta say there's a lot of factors that go into it too. It's not just like, oh, we sprinted and that's the reason why we got fast. We did no resisted sprints and we got faster. We're just exposing them to high velocity sprinting, and the actual dosage was very short. We're doing about like 3 to 6 like linear max effort sprints per session. So that's somewhere between like 8 to 12 sprints per week, and we still have people getting faster.
What do you think this means for you programming your training in the future? Like thinking about what you did last year and now with this data that you have collected, how are you going to change to improve your training upon? Is it just going to be less total volume, less volume sprinting, make sure everything is high quality? Like what are the like specific things that you could take from this data and actually implement into your program in the future?
I think that's a great question. Well, I think it's so weird with this time now because it's hard to coin the reverse engineering the sport because we don't know when we're going to play. So
Right.
My mindset right now is like, all right, I'm just going to keep them like a constant state of readiness. I'm never going to really like put them in a hole. But if I know like traditional training, it's like we always, all right, we can do 6 sessions, so let's do 6 sessions. But like, do we really need to do that? Or can we, and I did, me and Coach Tucker did a microdosing presentation on the Strength Coach Network. Plug out the Q there, sponsor the show.
I remember listening. I listened to that. That was a good one.
So we found, so I did basically the traditional microdosing model, right? It's like shortened sessions, higher frequency, right? And Sean, you did this with basketball. You guys probably have experienced a little, or experimenting a little bit with doing that model. But I really just took that model and did it with speed. So like through 3 to 6 sprints, or 2 to 3 sprints before practice, 2 days a week. And I was like, but there's your speed stimulus. Yeah, they're getting a lot of speed stimulus during practice, but you can't quantify it as much. Like we don't have, unless you have GPS. But even so, you don't know, like, all right, what's his actual, say a football player, what's his actual high output with no pads on, like sprinting as hard as you can? You'll never know it probably, unless you're doing that, the flying sprints and you're timing that stuff and getting those outputs. So I think just being able to expose them to that high velocity sprinting all year round is huge.
I think it's been interesting to hear what you guys have done at Villanova and a couple other programs have done based off because you said it yourself, you don't really know when you're going to play next. And a lot of the football programs that just started, like they had 4 weeks to prepare for a season. Like it throws the previous traditional periodization monitors out the door. I guess you can't really you can't really periodize right now, right? Like it's just kind of week by week, progress what you can. When it gets to the point that you need or feel a deload, you kind of just individualize their deload? I know I'm thinking out loud, but is that kind of what it looks like?
Yeah, kind of. I think kind of, and you can kind of feel the body language of the kids too. It is definitely harder because you can't like hang out with these kids and like get to talk with them a little bit more because like your sessions are short. You're going from next session to next session. You're getting kids out, things like that. But yeah, we didn't have a fall break this year, and the last week was like the fall break. So I was like, all right, this is our deload. We're just gonna keep intensity high, cuts of volume, right? And just really try to keep intensity in for that deload week. And that's kind of why I just tested just jump mat, vert, and then some fly 10s on our speed deck. To see, I'm going to probably hit some strength, some weight room numbers, just like hit a heavy squat, heavy bench the last week of the semester. So see kind of where that's at. And, because we're talking about, I was listening to some of your previous podcasts, like if all my guys are squatting 1.5 to 1.75 their body weight, like, right, what more? I don't need to get them stronger. The stuff on the field that I'm doing will switch up the surfaces of the turf, the track, doing all the different med ball throws, things like that is going to benefit them more and prep them more to be more resilient on the field.
Are you guys going to collect this type of data on the football guys as well?
Probably. We need to. We should have did it last week, but I have to talk to Coach Tucker about that. But we do have data. We do have 5-10 data on football. So
yeah, because you work with lacrosse, football, and then what are the other sports you work with?
Volleyball and men's tennis.
Okay, so because I think of I don't work with lacrosse. I've never worked with lacrosse. We don't even have it at UND. But I kind of think I would assume at least lacrosse and football players are similar in a lot of the qualities they have, like play on a similar size field. They both wear pads. There's contact in both sports. So my guess is you would kind of see the same thing with football players. I'm not sure. I mean, could you just give us your thoughts, or maybe elaborate or touch on what you would expect to see with football players if they underwent the same programming with sprinting once a week and lifting weights once a week, and really you're really microdosing at that point because just the logistics of the time we're in right now.
Yeah, definitely. I would say yes. You probably see the same exact thing as long as you're in. I hate to say it's like you're going to see results, but you just expose them to these drills. And it's nothing fancy we're doing. I'll tell you, nothing fancy we're doing.
Yeah.
We're doing, I'm starting resistance starts now this week with heavy chains. And I'm going to work down the curve, start with 4 chains, then work down to 1, and it's kind of going to take care of itself. But nothing we do is sexy. We just focus on trying to get results. And I think when you expose them to it and then you figure out what can I do coaching Q-wise to not overcoach them, but still give them some kind of context to make sure that we're getting the intent out of that exercise we want. So I think just adding the resisted starts will be a good thing for them, just another switch up. But we use the chains and tell them the lighter chains, and we sprint upright posture, strike the ground. So we teach them that max velocity posture, and it's very safe on them because their actual running velocity is down, but they're producing a lot of force in those upright mechanics, and it kind of just takes care of the technique for you. And then same with JB Moran and Matt Cross, all this heavy sled stuff, and that stuff takes care of all the technical things you think, right? Arms get longer, contact times are longer, and it keeps you a good forward lean. All those the exercises we're picking, right, set us up for success, and it makes our job easier. So I think, yes, Will, I think you'd see the same thing with football players.
And are you going to test jump numbers too after just this type of programming? Are you going to test some strength measurements, maybe a 1 rep max squat or whatever strength measurement you typically use?
Yeah, I'll probably hit a heavy squat at the end, week 11 here, because we've been squatting all semester. That's the main thing, because lacrosse only gets one weight room session. So
yeah.
we've been floor pressing, we went to bench for this week, and then the RDL, chin up, some accessories, and then we finished with some squat mobility on our weight room day. Yeah, I'll hit like a heavy pause double for certain, pause double like for a 2-second ISO or something like that. And if it looks good, I'll let them hit a heavy single. So that's kind of like my plan right now.
It's got to be a little difficult programming, at least a resistance training, I guess, not even microcycle off of one day a week in the weight room. I'm sure that presents its own challenges, but you said you also worked with tennis and volleyball. Not that those sports should not sprint at all. I'm not saying that, but is your testing or programming more biased towards their lateral power and their vertical power as opposed to just linear speed?
Yeah, so I try to do a bunch of variations of just jumps, and so like how a session would go. So we'd warm up, general warm up, stationary for like 5 minutes, then we'll go into all our power speed skip drills. Then I would like to throw in a bunch of like kind of build on our change direction stuff at the end of the warm up. So we've been doing week 4 through 8, we're doing a bunch of like rabbit chaser drills where they're shuffling, mirroring each other. And now once that stuff got installed, I threw that on the end of the warm up for this week. So it's like we just keep on progressing that stuff and just try to keep on layering in more and more and more. And then with the jumps, everything went from like linear, like normal snap downs, right, with a pause, counter movement, hot plus, things like that. And then it's like, all right, now it's double vert with a pause. Now it's double broads, triple broads, double broad plus a 180 back, things like that. We just keep on throwing a bunch of different progressions and trying to stress the tissue as much as we can in different planes. So that stuff's been just kind of trying stuff out and seeing what people are doing and just playing around with stuff. So I like to try to go with all planes of movement with jumps, to change direction work. And then when we're doing our linear sprints, like, all right, we're focused on that. We're trying to get faster.
Yeah, I think it'd be really interesting to see what your strength numbers and your like jump numbers will be after just focusing on sprinting. And just like anecdotally, so I've had some patellar tendinopathy this whole summer, and jumping would bother me, but sprinting I was good. Like I could do some bounding, straight leg bounding, and not have my knee get all bothered up from it. And I just started jumping again, and like my ability to go dunk a basketball and my ability to jump is better than what it was before. So like I'm assuming it's due to like the high neuromuscular activity from max effort sprinting is like the main driver of that. And it kind of just goes to show how important sprinting is compared to so many other things that we focus in the field. Like obviously strength is important. You got to strength train, you got to improve like tissue resilience, like force output, but how much sprinting affects so many other qualities is just like you can see it so well in so many different contexts, I guess.
Mm-hmm. My dog is going crazy. Sorry.
No worries.
Sorry.
We've had Will's dog on here before, on this podcast before too. So
Several times.
But I actually did jump Madam too, Will. So we saw half the guys PR'd. 16 out of 32 guys from last year jumped higher this year.
Yeah.
And only had 2 of those guys under 95% of their best. So like basically everyone was at where they were or above. And that's just to say like the sprinting and all the field work and things like that are keeping all those outputs high. And I think another thing is like a disclaimer is like we do so much stuff too. It's hard to say what is making this, because we do so much stuff.
For sure.
We're tempo squatting. We're RDLing. We're doing split.
Yeah.
We do so much stuff. It's hard to say like, all right, it's just this. But I think it is like a combination of all the stuff. So I think the more different movement patterns and different contractions and different planes we move in, we just want to try to make a resilient athlete. And I think that's just going to drive up the outputs while keeping them strong and resilient at the same time.
I want to go back and revisit like how your program will basically be altered by this new information, this new data that you have, and how you look at your in-season training too, because like especially with like lacrosse or tennis, volleyball, like a lot of coaches that don't want to go super heavy in the weight room just because the people get sore when you don't microdose properly. Like how is having this information about like high quality, low rep sprinting going to impact how you can weight room program, I guess, for your in-season athletes, and how we can just maybe shift the needle a little bit to include more sprinting as opposed to more barbell back squats in season.
Yeah. Definitely, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Like, I will always keep, with my future program, I always keep that sprinting pre-practice. And that just comes with educating your sport coaches. Like, I will take 30 minutes less of a lift if I can do this before practice, because this is going to prep them for an optimal practice, get them warmed up. I mean, it's something that we can't do. I mean, we can't go like, oh, we have men's basketball at 8 a.m. for a lift. Guess what? They're not going to be awake, and I don't have enough time to warm them up and like kind of get them to where they need to be to sprint at that time in the morning. But you have a team that practices in the afternoon, right? They've been awake for 6 to 8 hours. Their body, they have 2 meals in them. Like, that stuff's huge in my opinion. Just educating the sport coaches on that. I do the same thing with volleyball. I sprint them pre-practice, and that's, you can just see how when I took them over a year and a half ago to where they are now, they would run and almost fall on their face when they go to accelerate. And now it's like they can actually slowly rise and like max velocity, like sprint. And it's good to see. But that's the biggest thing that I'll always keep that in. My tennis team sprints too. We do a speed day on the court. So I think that's something that's huge right now, just making sure that that is never out of their programming or out of their training.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about volleyball, because I work with volleyball too, and so once or twice a week I have them before practice. 2 or 3 times a week I have them after practice. So would you recommend, or I guess with your volleyball team, are you going to sprint them at least once a week, in season, out season, like any time of the year?
Yep. And last year I sprinted them in season. We did like a strength day and then like a power day, and the power day was just sprinting. So I just take Dr. Dan Baker's in-season model, and then I kind of just bastardize it to like a tier system and make sure I got the movements that I want. So, I usually try to do a 3-day where one of the days is like a game day plus one. It's like kind of more of a recovery day. And then you have your strength day and then your power day. And then I like to do my ACL work on the strength day. And I like to do my max velocity work on the power day. And that stuff's all moving fast. Smaller, get them going. It's almost kind of like a primer, 2 days out, 1 or 2 days out.
What's the distance you have volleyball run for their max velocity?
Just like I run, so our court, I build them up probably maybe 10, 15 yards. And then we run from 10-foot line to 10-foot line.
Okay. Yeah.
Like maybe 8 to 10 yards.
Okay.
So, moral of the story, if you're looking to compete against anyone at Villanova, be prepared to run fast, because it sounds like you guys are just speed demons in the Philadelphia area. But that's awesome though, because like that's one of the most stimulating things that you can do for an athlete is to sprint. Now I know a lot of people do their like high quality isos, whether it be weighted with a barbell safety squat bar and do something super stressful like that, but you're really not going to find very many things besides high quality all out sprinting. It checks almost every box in the training continuum. That's the word I'm looking for.
And then you think like it is a stressful thing, but it's also you don't take that long to recover from too. Like, you think you do some crazy hands elevate or whatever, hands assisted long iso eccentric, that might be pretty stressful on you. And then, but sprinting, you might be able to recover within 24, 48 hours and be able to do it depending on the dosage. So I think a lot of people kind of just hit their head against the wall doing a bunch of weight room work that takes away from what they're doing at practice or what they could be doing sprint wise, jump wise, things like the high output work.
Yeah, so that leads me to another question then with your football players. Have you found that certain positions recover better or worse from max effort sprinting, max velocity sprinting? Like, do the linemen recover a little bit differently than the skill players? What have you seen with that? Or have you just seen different responses from different players in general?
We definitely have like the bigs will do, you mean like shorter distances. You mean like while we're doing longer sprints with the skill, they'll be still doing 10, 15 yards. And we don't really let them kind of like really open up or do any like roll. We do expose them to like some build ups and things where they're going to be more upright because there are going to be times where they do that. But we're not like, all right, we're doing 3 20-yard flying sprints with the bigs. I mean, but we do like to expose them to it just so that, all right, you guys are going to do this at some point when you guys are practicing or running down on a screen route, things like that, or screenplay. So we like to expose the bigs to that. And then the other part, there is people that we do like kind of cater to. Like, all right, this guy's a hammy guy, right? Like, no matter what, he finds a way to tweak a hammy. So it's like, all right, we just tell that guy, don't go above 90% today. Like, focus on being relaxed. And like those little things that like, when you work with these guys a lot, those are the things you pick out. It's like, all right, this guy always tweaks the hamstring when we go into our flying sprint. So let's make sure that we do 90% effort or we do tempo runs, whatever it is. Like, he's getting enough of a stimulus just doing some hard starts for 15 to 20 yards. Why injure him and take him out of training by doing this flying sprint that he might not actually need?
That's interesting because I think it's just interesting because of everything that's going on via Strength Coach Twitter with Daniel Jones of the Giants and getting sniped from the upper deck.
Yo.
It's but like you think how often, maybe not how often, is he ever going to be exposed to that kind of running? Like did his form break down or did his body just break down? Like, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because
when you think the average drive starts at the 25, right? So it's like,
yeah,
he ran 80 yards and fell. He would have scored if they're on the 30. But I mean, I don't know. What the Giants, are they sprinting?
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't know if they're sprinting 80 yards. Like,
if on Wednesday or whatever, Friday, if they're getting exposed to some top speed mechanic type stuff, that might not happen. But it's also a very long run that a lot of football players don't get exposed to 80-yard sprints. So.
And how many of them get exposed to running away from people at that long distance too? Like, a lot of people don't understand like that is an added stressor, not just to sprinting. Sprinting is the main stressor. Being chased by someone that wants to legitimately rip something out of your hands and bring you to the ground. That's a whole different subject.
Yeah, and so kind of to piggyback on that, have you ever had a football player or a football coach, or I guess a coach of any kind, say, like, well, my guys don't actually sprint in a game linearly, so what's the point of sprinting? Like, I've heard offensive linemen or defensive linemen say, I never run more than 6 yards. Why am I doing tempo runs? Why am I doing build-ups? Why am I doing these 10, 15, 20-yard sprints? Like, what's your answer when someone's going to ask you that?
My answer is that I believe that the sprinting is the most demanding exercise we can do, right? It drives up weights. Like, it will make people squat more. It'll make you deadlift more. So if a coach has a problem with that, like we're going to sprint our bigs because it's going to make them stronger, and it'll have carryover to the things they want to do in the weight room, right? And those in the trenches modalities that they need to do, it's going to make them stronger at that. So I think that's my answer to that.
Love it.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's I've heard that too, and it's just like, why wouldn't you sprint? Even if your sport is like doesn't really involve a whole lot of sprinting. It's just from a neurological perspective, it's your trump card. Like it like I said, it checks boxes. But hey, Sean, we're running a little low on time. Thank you so much for giving us your time today. This is great. I know we kind of had a issue with the first time we recorded this, so we're thankful to get you back on and record this guy. But Will's got a final question for you before you head out of here, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. So first time being on, actually first time getting a But who would you recommend that we reach out to and try to bring on here and have a discussion with at some point in the near future?
Oh, I actually got 3 for it. I was thinking Cam Joss. I think you should get him on here. So him and Wellman got going on their crew at Indiana. I know they beat your Penn State.
I don't want to talk about that game. That was I have my reservations about that game, but yeah.
And then Matt Nicholson at Montana or Brandon Ronan at Those guys are 2 good guys and really mentored me well, taught me a lot of things.
I remember whenever I had the opportunity to go to Montana with UND men's basketball when I was working with them. First of all, that weight room, stunningly beautiful. They have a weight room out there. And then I met Ronan, awesome dude, great guy to talk to. So I will definitely be reaching out to him as well as the other guys. So
that's the best weight room. That's why I went back to GA, because that was built.
Dude, it was a lot of fun. That was actually I've like toyed around with those Sornex jammer arms before, but that was the first time I like did an actual workout with them, and they're so smooth, like unbelievably smooth.
I had my tennis athletes just do jammer stuff all the time. Like that was the main stimulus.
Dude, so whenever I was an intern at Penn State, we had, and this was before the revamp of all the new weight rooms there. It was before Craig Fitzgerald came in and kind of revamped the entire program. But we would have, in one weight room, we had an actual jammer that literally was just a jump rope rack, and I could never understand it. It didn't make any sense. I was like, this is an awesome piece of equipment. Why are we using it just to hang jump ropes on? It was dusty. No one used it. It was just a jump rope rack. It didn't make any sense.
That's insane.
All righty, dude. Again, thank you so much for taking the time and refilming this for us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for inviting me on. I listened to all the podcasts on there, so I love it.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Thank you so much. Best of luck to you and your teams and your staff over there at Villanova. And hopefully you guys are allowed some guests pretty soon so I can come up and lift with you guys. And Will, if you're ever in the Philly area.
I'll make sure to hit someone up if I am.
The drive is 22 hours, just a heads up. All right, Sean.
You can drive to this.
All right, Sean. Thanks a bunch, buddy.
Yeah.